Hey, let's talk
And
about sales and closing and shit that makes
I
people
know,
money.
I know. I was like, the last thing I wanted to jam on was selling. So one of the things that Brad Lee's famous for is the closer school. He's got a lot of good sales training. In case you haven't heard, he's just full of one-liners. Like I remember when Brad's selling me, and it took him a while. Like I was like, dude, I'm a sales dude and I'm an easy sell, but I'm a hard sell and I'm loving your lines. And he was just like, it'd be dumb if you didn't. And like all of his, like, I'm like stealing your lines, dude. Like they're so good. For those that don't know, Brad has a side gig where he makes more money than he does at Lightspeed, which is stand-up comedy. But then he weaves, so no, but he weaves a lot of his good closing lines, but he's not afraid to close. So I guess what advice would you give to the sales guy? Like, what's some good tips on selling that you're like, man, I love training on this. This is something that helps a sales guy. Anything there?
Well, I always like to focus on objections. Why? Well, because an objection is when someone stops and will not proceed. Well, if they won't proceed, it's pretty hard to close the deal. So, to me, the difference between sales and closing is pretty simple. Salespeople, by the way, you can sell somebody something without closing a deal. Why? They never said no. They didn't stop. They said
Yeah.
yes. They said yes, and you sold them. Great, good for you. But a closer is someone that can come in when someone says no and get them to proceed. Now, how do you do that? How do you get around that objection? Well, number one tip I'd give is make sure you identify and isolate the objection so you know that it's real. Too many people are trying to close deals that have false objections. They're not even the real reason. The person just said it to you, and now you're trying to solve that, and it's not even the problem. And that's why you find them to, after a while leaving. You're like, whoa, I couldn't close the deal. Well, that's because you were trying to solve a false objection. So how do you identify and isolate the real objection? Well, you solve it with a hypothetical solution. So, like, give me an objection.
I'm just gonna think about this and maybe get back to you in a couple weeks.
That makes
Sorry.
perfect sense, Sam. It's a big decision, but let me ask you a question. If you were certain right now, would you buy the product?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, now watch. I got you to say yes. Now that's the first objection because
Yeah.
you said no. Now you just said yes. Okay, so now phase two is I got to figure out how to solve that problem. Now the fact that you said I got to think about it, I wouldn't have already went to that technique, but I wanted to demonstrate it. If you said you wanted to think about it, my question would be fantastic. What is it you want to think about? Like
Um,
what do you want to think about? Because what I'm trying to find is the real reason you won't move forward. So when someone says they want to think about it, nobody wants to think about it. What they
yeah.
want to think about is the price. What they want to think about is calling your competitors. What they want to think about is whether or not they can afford it. But they don't want to just think about it. Nobody, I want to think about it. Nobody wants to do that shit. Okay. What do you want to think about, Sam?
Just if I really need this right now and this point in business or not, like,
Okay, now right here, if I were to hear this in an actual situation, I would realize that I failed to do one of the steps correctly. I did not build value. And if I didn't build value, my question would be why? And then I'd probably go one step back and think, did I gather enough intel? Did I figure out how to get your opinion of my product or service above the opinion of your money? Because again,
mm,
if you want to make a transaction, all you have to do is raise the value of your product or service beyond the value of their money. Happens every time. So,
yeah,
how do I get you to value my product or service more than you value your money? Well, there's a couple of ways. I can give it to you, the puppy dog close. I can give it to you, let you see the benefit, and then okay, you don't want it, and then all of a sudden you want to keep it. There's a million techniques, but at the end of the day, if you can get their value above the value of their money, you're going to make a transaction. So when someone stops and I got to think about it, don't take that as a reason because that's not a reason. Okay, what is it you need to think about? And by the way, the smoother you do it, the better. But like, I understand, Sam, it's a big decision. I would want to think about it too, but out of curiosity, what in particular are you going to think about? Is it the price? Is it the color? Is it the total job? And if they said, I want to know if I need it, well, that indicates that I didn't build any value. If they said they don't know if they need it, folks, you didn't build enough value. So now what do? You jump back and you get out of that area of the deal and you go back and
yeah.
you build
Stop pushing. This is where I think a lot of salespeople, they just start pushing and pushing and pushing, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. It
you got to
was your fault. You messed up. You didn't ask enough questions. You didn't discover. You didn't create the value.
you got to go back and build the value. So it depends on the objection that you're getting, Sam. But the technique that I like to teach the most is the ability to identify and isolate an objection by using a hypothetical, so you can determine whether or not that's the real reason. And then once you identify the real reason, then step 2 comes in, where you basically just use logic. It's leverage obvious gain, which is for your product or service, intelligence, and common sense. People say, well, what does that mean? Well, what that means is use your fucking head. Okay. That's what it fucking means. Use your damn head. Like, if the wife's not there and they would buy if the wife were there, what is one common sense thing? Hey, let's get the wife here. Oh, there's a fucking novel idea. Hey, let's get her on the phone. Hey, let's get her on FaceTime. Hey, let's send a limousine for her and get her back here. Okay, because guess what? He just said, if my wife was here, I'd buy the deal. Okay, good. Where's your wife? That's common sense, man. Like, most people get stuck on stupid and they don't know what to say. And they don't know what to say because they're not trained properly. They're nervous. They're scared. They're like a skittish dog. Like, at the end of the day, man, you knock on that door. I bet you 90% of the people knocking on doors tomorrow are wondering, are these people going to be angry? Dude, don't anticipate negativity, you dipshit. Kick the door in like you got a 9-incher and say, dude, I got a product or service that you actually need, and believe it, because if you don't believe it, you probably shouldn't be selling it.
Amen. Amen. Guys, pause, rewind the last 2 minutes of this, rewatch that, because repeat's one of his things 70 times, please. And
make it a meme.
Yes. Like, I can't preach that enough. Like, it is so sad. One of the biggest sad moments of my life is when I go shadow a rep. And this could be a rep that's been knocking for 10 years. Or this could be a salesperson that's like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you've never been trained, have you? Like, no formal training whatsoever. You've been doing this for how long? You've been skirting by making your 60, 100 grand a year. Cool. Like, what happens? Like, you knock a door or you talk to somebody, they give you an objection, and it's tail between the legs. And it's like, oh, I mean, well, like, what do you mean you're not interested? It's like, oh, you said that for the last 10 years? Like, the objection handling, the persistence, the confidence. It's sad to watch sometimes when they think because they've been doing this so long, or because that they've been, trained because they watch a few videos. I'm like, man, there's so much more. If you can overcome objections like a rock star. And it's funny, everybody asks, like, Sam, how'd you get into roofing and pest control and satellite and all these other industries that you never really knocked? Because I consult all sorts of industries now. Windows, I was with a window guy yesterday, and I'm like, I just know how to overcome objections better than anyone else. Like, in my opinion, I'm like, I'm the second best objection handler in the planet next to Bradley. And I'm like, the objections are all the same. I need to talk to my spouse. Like, I don't care if you're doing roof, solar, insurance, whatever. Like, you're going to get that. I need to think about it. You're going to get that. Like, I just know how to overcome that and isolate the objection. I love this.
All right. So here's what I would say. If I'm in the roofing business and somebody said they wanted to sleep on it, I'd say, dude, trust me, your bed's more comfortable. Let's get this done.
Ooh, that's so good. I want to sleep on it. You're like, you don't want to sleep up there.
There's a lot of pigeon crap up there. Like, let's just get your roof done so you can sleep comfortably in your bed.
Love that.